Hi, this is Federico with Cuttle, and this video is in response to a request that was made on Facebook about how to make a design inspired by the picture I have on the screen, and also how to turn that design into a template. This is a little bit more complex than other videos I have been making, but I thought it would be a cool opportunity to give you a taste for how to turn your own designs into templates that you can share with other people that would have customizable elements. So I'm going to start by creating the design itself, and then we're going to talk about how to publish it and turn it into a template and how to add those elements that other people can customize. So let's start. This design is inspired by this idea of using embroidery or like cross stitch, if I'm not wrong, to create these kind of like Christmas tree ornaments based on a name that is mirrored. And I did a little research and I realized that this particular picture that was submitted belongs to this website, or the people have created this website called M Designs. Found it right here. They make personalized name tree ornaments that are nicely embroidered, and they make all these different variations. And I was mostly looking at these to see how it's constructed. But then I was doing more research and I realized that on Pinterest, there are many other people that have tried ideas that are quite similar to that. So this the basic idea is to use sort of like a script font and then mirror it sort of vertically, and there's a precedent. So I'm not like stealing their idea. That was my main concern. We're kind of riffing on something else. So let's start by recreating the design itself, and then we'll move on to adding those customizable elements. So I'm going to start by creating the basic shape, and those dimensions are going to be arbitrary because I don't have a sense of scale here. I'm just going to kind of take a guess. So first I'm going to create the shape that is going to be the outside. So I'm going to start with say a 2-inch rectangle or square. I'm going to make it 2 inches, and I'm going to add a sort of rounded thing on top by just creating a circle, placing it at the origin, and then scaling it to 2 inches as well. And I'm going to join those by selecting them and adding a Boolean union. And then finally, I want to round those corners at the bottom. So I'm going to select my shape, and I'm going to add the round corners. And I think that pretty much resembles, the basic idea. Perhaps the corners could be a bit more rounded. Let's say something like that. Okay, I'm going to leave the rest up to you. So when I do things that are going to be cut on the outside, I like to have that be a red score, a red stroke, because we're going to be making something now that is going to be an engraving. So I'm going to move these down to the center of the canvas. And now let's tackle the text. So in this case, I want to use a warped text because the text should narrow towards the top and kind of be wider towards the bottom. So there is an option in Cuttle. I'm going to search here, warp. Maybe. And I'm going to use the custom version. So that one works like this. I'm going to place it here. And I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees and place it by the center. And so this one works like this. If I double click on the shape itself, the shape where the text is, I can actually change it, and the text is going to sort of accommodate to that. So I'm just going to get a sort of rough idea here. And I think an important part of this design is the font choice. So we're going to just experiment with some fonts. So let's use a sort of Christmassy word. We can do something like hope. One thing I noticed when doing this is that if you use lowercase letters, sometimes the lowercase is like the P in this case is going to kind of change how the rest of the letters behave in respect to the bottom or the center in this case. So it seems to help to use uppercase to have them all kind of aligned. And then let's choose a font. So I think in the handwriting fonts, we'll find some of the kind of, nice squiggles. And I was looking before and I found a couple of interesting ones, something like up doc. I think that kind of matches the idea. And then if we look at the design, what we need to do is mirror that. And there is a convenient modifier here called, I'm going to select the warp text. I'm going to go for the mirror repeat. And I think that's our basic design. There might be some other things we can tweak, but I think this is the basic idea. So now, how do we publish these to turn it into a template where someone can type the word, or the word is just always going to change? So Cuttle has this view that we're working on here that we call the editor, where we can do all the edits. And then there's another view called the README that I can access by clicking here on the left-hand side. And the README starts as a sort of blank document with a little prompt here that says, click here to write notes about your project or upload images. And yes, indeed, you can write notes. So you can say things, you can just write plain text saying things like, this is a Christmas ornament. But more importantly, you can embed components. And so I created this thing as a component that I can actually name. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it the tree, or the name tree, to differentiate it for the one when I have where I have the image. And so now I want to embed that component. And whenever I'm starting something new here, I get this little prompt with a bunch of different things, like ways to format text, but also I get this component. And so if I click on that one, it gives me options to embed one. So I'm going to embed the one called name tree. And this is the basic idea. Now, whenever you publish this template and share it with someone else, they can simply click this download SVG. How do you publish it? So there's an option here that says share. So if I hit share, I'm most likely want to publish it as unlisted. So anyone with the link can view the project. So I can click there. And this publishes the project and gives me actually a link. If I click here, copy link, I can place that link wherever I want. I can send it in an email or place it on social media so someone else can access my project. So this is very basic because when someone downloads this SVG by clicking this blue button, they will get an SVG that is exactly what we designed, but there are no real options to modify it, to change it somehow. So we want to add those options. And the very basic option we want to add is how to change the text. So let's go back into the editor view by clicking here, and let's add an option to modify that text. So I'm going to go here on top, and there is a plus sign that says new parameter. I'm going to click there, and that gives me kind of like a default name parameter, but I'm going to give it a name immediately by clicking on this name right here. And I'm going to call it my text. This could be anything, but like I'm going to try and make it obvious. And so I want to click these three dots here that give me options and change the parameter type to text. And so I want these, whatever is contained in my text, and let's start with something like light, again, uppercase. And I want to figure out a way to plug whatever is inside my text into the text that I use here. So let's see how to do that. I'm going to select again that, I'm going to select it here. And so as you can see here, there is an option that says text that corresponds to the one I created. And in order to sort of plug in the one I created here, I need to go here to the hope one and then click the three dots. And there is an option that says edit expression. That's important. If I were to simply type my text there, that's what would appear. I'm going to do it just to show you. If I type my text, I'll type it exactly as the other one is, then I just get my text right here. But if I click on edit expression, now it appears in a kind of different way. Now I can type my text, and what appears here is whatever I type here. So now it says light. You could also have my name on it, or any other word. But let's stick with Hope. Hope is what we had before, and in uppercase letters. And that's it. Like, well, let me show you. If I go back to the README, now when someone sees that packaged view, the one that where you shared that link, they are all going to be able to type anything here. Hope, maybe hope and light. Once again, I get this thing with the down letters, or simply, I don't know, Christ. I think the last option I want to show you how to add is how to choose the font. I think this is an important one because it's going to make the template much more usable. I think there are many other things we can switch up, tweak about this template, like, for example, how these connects to each other and whatnot. But let me show you the font option. So I'm going to go back here. And so I'm going to do something quite similar. I'm going to create another parameter. I'm going to call it my font, just to give it a sort of understandable name. And then again, I'm going to change the parameter type, and that's going to be a font. And now I want these to be plugged into, imagine that there is a sort of wire going between these and these. So in order to do that, I need to go down here. Well, this is selected. And then this font that corresponds to this element is the one I want to plug into my font. And then to do that, I need to do the same. I click on the three dots next to it. And there's one that says edit expression. And I can just replace whatever appears there to this name that I had, which is my font. And then Cuttle does its magic. And so now what happens is that if I choose any other font here, that's going to affect that. And once again, if I go look at the README view, now whoever is playing around with these can look at the font and change the font. And furthermore, and I think this is a cool part, we can sort of suggest to the user which fonts we liked from the ones that are available. So let's do that. Let's do that real quick, because I think this is an important feature. So let's go back to the edit review. And so the one we were using before was in the handwriting. I think it was abdoc. Yeah. So when I select a font, I can go over here and say, add font to recommended. So I'm going to do that. And then let's add another one just to have them there as an example. I had my notes here. I think Hope. Oh no, there is no Hope font. I think I had another one. Parisian. Yes. Yeah, this is a good squirrely one. So I got the Parisian font. Hope I'm pronouncing it right. And I'm going to add it to recommended. So the beauty of doing that is that now if I go back to the README is, someone can type something like light. Keep going to that example. Light, and maybe it works well with Parisian or abdoc, which is the other one that I think maybe Parisian works better. So yeah, that is the basic idea. I think there are other things I would change about this template. For example, I think it would be nice, for some instances, it would be nice to move these closer to the center so it overlaps. And I think it creates more of a tree-like shape. We could do that. Let's do that. I'm going to create a new parameter. I'm going to call it horizontal adjust or something. And that one is just going to be a number. Hopefully this is not getting too complicated, but I'm trying to make the template very usable. That's my... So that number, what it's going to do is it's going to move the position of these things. So when of the letters, so when I select it, I'm going to change the position by that horizontal number. So that would be the position in X. So I'm just gonna do it. I call it horizontal. So that means that whenever I change this number, I'm going to make it a bigger number, 1.00. Whenever I change that number, that's going to adjust the position. I think that makes it more usable. So now I can publish this version now that I made a bunch of changes. And I can go back to the README view. And now I have a lot of control. Now I can put my name, for example. And I can choose the suggested fonts. You know, there could be more fonts to suggest. And then now I can adjust that horizontal position to make it very tree-like. So this is just but an introduction on how to make templates, but I hope it was useful. Thank you for watching, and keep those questions coming.